everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are going to be picking out the February TBR jar game prompts. Each month I pick out 5 prompts from this little jar here. They're full of little things like genres, prompts about books, formats, just anything that we can think of we put into the jar. Me and my best friend use this jar each month to try and not punish ourselves but guide the way that we read our books over the month. I definitely am more of a stickler for this jar than my best friend is. She's definitely more of a mood reader than I am. However, as you can see, we're sitting here with January's prompts already filled in, and I'm going to let you know how that went very quickly before we go into the actual game rules and draw out the 5 prompts. So for January we had ebook as the first prompt, and I read Bound to the Fae King by Megan Van Dyke. I gave that 4 stars. For fantasy, I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and this is by Heather Fawcett, and I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely recommend this book. Moving on to indie book, and I read Beauty and the Blade by S.C. Grayson, and I gave that 4 stars. For colour wheel, I ended up with the colour teal, and I read Josh and Gemma the Second Time Around by Sarah Reddy, and I also gave that 4 stars. And finally, poll pick was between The Donut Trap by Julie Chu, I hope that's how I say it, and 𝓕𝓲𝓭 𝓬𝓮 by Ashley Herring Blake, and the latter was chosen by everyone on my Instagram, and I gave that book 4 stars as well. So I had a pretty good January month, but now we are, where are we? We're on this page here. We've got our empty spot here that needs some prompts before February hits us. We are in the last full week of January now as I film this, which is giving me a little bit of anxiety, so we need to get this done today. Let's talk about the rules really quick. So if you're new here, I do this jar every month unless I'm doing a big readathon, and this just guides how I read. I draw out 5 prompts each month. If I manage to complete all 5 prompts, great, I've had a good month. If I didn't manage to finish it, there is a slight punishment going into the next month where I have to pick out 6 prompts instead of the 5. There are a couple of double ups, such as genre like fantasy and romance, since both my best friend and I read that quite often, but aside from that, everything else should only be in here once. The goal is to read through all of these prompts before we put them back in, so I shouldn't have too many issues with double ups like we did in 2022. Let's draw out the 5 prompts for February. So we're going to give it a good shake. There are a couple of prompts in here, I should say, that are for my best friend, such as erotica and horror, I think, is in here. Or did we take that one out? I can't remember. But if they come up, I obviously won't be reading those. So our first prompt is large book. And large book means anything over 500 pages. I do apologise about the lighting. I'm having to film this at night. I've run out of time to film everything getting towards the end of the month, and I wanted to get it done rather than wait for daylight. I should probably put on my ring light, but I'm sure you can see as best as possible at the moment. So let's reach in for prompt number 2. I always get nervous that my hand is going to get jammed in there. So I've got another prompt here, and it is author from Australia, so that means I have to read a book by an author from Australia, which will be very, very cool. I actually have the February book of the month, which I will be sharing in this video, who's by an Australian author, so I could probably use that book. Prompt number 3 is favorite trope. So that means my favorite trope. I have a few, so I'm going to think on this, and the first one coming to mind is enemies to lovers, but I'm going to look at what I have on my shelf and go from there. Prompt number 4, let's get in there. Oh. Contemporary romance, which is perfect for the month of February. And our last prompt is going to be, where are we? I always struggle to grab one. There we go. a library borrow. Excellent! I have several on my shelf in front of me that I need to read. So those are my 5 prompts, and I will be back with what books that I chose for my TBR and the rest of the month hopefuls. Okay, so the first prompt is large book, and that is not working out for me. This was the only book that was over 500 pages long on my shelf. It is Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. Hope I'm saying that right. This is the second book in the Serpent and Dove series. So this follows Lou and Reed. They are the main characters from the first book. Lou is a witch and Reed is, or was, a Cheshire. Basically, he worked for the church in helping protect the people in this city. And they are now on the run after barely escaping death in the first book from the church, the witches' covens, and also the crown, I think. I'm not too sure really what else happens in this book. To be honest, the only reason I'm adding this to my list is to see if I'm going to continue the series or not. I didn't really enjoy Serpent and Dove, but my best friend has all 3 books and I've started the series. I am a bit of a completionist. I hate DNFing series, but also 2023 is the year of not wasting time on books we don't enjoy. So I have added this to the list, but whether or not I make it all the way through the 500 pages is questionable. I do have another book that is close enough to 500 pages that is going to be on the TBR, and as long as I read at least 2 pages of this book, I'm going to class it as I picked it up and read it, so I will be able to mark it off my TBR properly. But I don't have high expectations for it. I'm hoping that I'll like it, but I've heard that this book is quite boring, and I already found book 1 not to my taste, so we'll just have to wait and see how this one goes. Next on the list is author from Australia, and also this is the TBR book of the month. So I had a video that went up, I'll have it linked in the description below, at the start of the year, listing out all 12 books that I am going to be reading to downsize my physical TBR, and each month 1 book has already been picked out. This is February's book. It is by Sally Thorne. She is an Australian author. She is also the author that wrote The Hating Game, and I'm really excited to read this. This has been on my TBR a couple of times over 2022 and I never got to it. This follows a couple that are working in a rest home. The main person I think is called Ruthie. Yes. And she's fully committed to working in the retirement village, and then along comes Teddy, and I think he's had a bit of a rough life and he's now here to do some sort of, I wouldn't say community service, but I think his father puts him into the position of having to do work here to change his ways, and so obviously they come across each other, and I think this is going to be really, really cute. I did enjoy The Hating Game, so I'm hopeful that this book here will be also as amazing as the first book that I read by this author. Next on the list is favourite trope, and I went back and forth over what trope that I wanted to use, and one of my favourites is Grumpy Sunshine, so I'm going to be reading Accidentally Amy by Lynn Painter. I absolutely loved the do-over by this author. That is a YA romance, so this will be my first adult romance by her, and I'm so excited to read this book. It follows not Amy, but her name is Isabella, and she picks up the cup of coffee with the name Amy on it, has a really cute meeting with this guy, and then finds out that he's her really grumpy new boss. So that's going to be really, really fun, and I'm excited to read it. It looks like a short book. It's very small. I just recently got this in, and I am super pumped to get through this because, like I said, the do-over was adorable. I absolutely loved it. Gave it 5 stars last year. I have 2 books by her on my shelf as well that I really want to read, and this is going to be fun. I think I'm already expecting great things from this little novel. Next is contemporary romance, and I'm going with a library book that I have out at the moment. It is The Fastest Way to Fall. The way I snapped this off the shelf when I saw it, my best friend was shocked. It is by Denise Williams, and I read her airport novellas, which was so much fun last year. I actually listened to all 3 of them on audiobook and highly recommend. This one follows Britta, and she is a bit like Set On You, Amy Lee's style with being a fitness influencer, and she's asked to try out this new app. She works with a gym trainer, his name is Wes, and I think sparks begin to fly through the process of figuring out if this app works or not. And she's his client and he's not meant to date her, so I think that's going to be fun, a little bit of a forbidden romance. And I have been waiting to read this for the longest time. I've had it recommended to me so many times. I wanted to buy a physical copy of it and read it, but I never got around to it. So when I saw this at the library, I picked it up. I'm probably going to buy a physical copy as a trophy afterwards. I've got a feeling this is going to be a 5-star read. And the final book on the TBR jar is a library borrow. This is another one from the library. This is A Lady's Formula for Love by Elizabeth Everett. This will be my first time reading something by this author. This follows Lady Violet, who is quite the intelligent woman. She is part of a secret female-led scientist sort of group in her, obviously this is a historical romance, so in her time, and she also works for the Crown. Very clever sounding woman, and she has a bit of a soft spot for Protection Officer Arthur. Is that his name? Yes, Arthur. And obviously something's going to happen and they're going to be put together. So I'm very excited to see how this goes. I don't really have any ideas of how this will go because I've never read anything by this author before. But it sounds really delightful. I've been enjoying historical romances quite a lot lately. Evie Dunmore and her series, and I've just recently found India Holton's series and absolutely love her Dangerous Damsels. So I'm hoping this will be another great read with another wonderful led female character, main character, and yeah, very happy that I found this at the library by chance, and this will be my library borrow read. So we have 3 other books to add to our TBR hopefuls. I have a space for 8 books. Because I used the second First Impressions, which is my TBR book of the month, for my, what is it called? My for author from Australia, it means that I was able to add an extra book rather than just 2 more. So we have Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is the first book in the Lunar Chronicles, and I am reading this with a friend. It is, we do a buddy read every month, and this was what we picked. We decided we'd start this series since we both had all of the copies available to us. Okay, so this follows Cinder, and she is a talented mechanic and also a cyborg. This is set in sort of like a intergalactic type of world, so I'm guessing this is sci-fi. I don't know a great deal about this series, just that I've been recommended to read it if I liked Marissa Meyer's books, which I do. And Cinder is hated by her stepmother for potentially being the reason why her stepsister is ill, and then she gets mixed up with Prince Kai. There's a whole intergalactic sort of storyline and a forbidden romance. So I'm really excited for this because I've heard great things about the series, and this is going to break up a lot of romance. This is going to be a good fantasy read, I think. Well, sci-fi fantasy read. I'm going to enjoy it. So I actually had another book lined up in this part of the video, but I've had to remove it from my TBR and change it out because of a last minute change to the entire schedule for February. And so I've slotted in another library borrow here, and it is by the book by Jasmine Guillory. I know I'm saying that wrong. And it's the second book in a series, and the first book was actually written by another author, Julie Murphy. She wrote If the Shoe Fits, which was a Cinderella retelling. This one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I absolutely adore, and it follows Isabel, who works in publishing. She's very jaded and lost in her job, and she really wants to get that big career break, and she knows she can get it if she gets this beastly author to finally finish his manuscript. And so she goes to his mansion, and Bo Towers is the beast, and it's not as what it seems. He's just as lost and jaded as she is in the world. So I think it's going to be a really cute romance. I drove across town just to pick this book up from the library, so I'm really looking forward to it. and I'll let you know what my thoughts are when we get to the end of February. And last on the list that I want to read is another library book. It is In a New York Minute by Kate Spencer, and I love this cover. We have the yellow one normally in stock here if I wanted to buy it, but this I think is the US cover and I just love it. It's so cute looking. This will be my first time reading Kate Spencer. I believe this was her debut novel, and it is recommended by two great authors, Jasmine Guillory, is that how you say her last name? And Christina Lauren. So hopefully this will be great. And this does seem like it'll be upclass New York. Okay, so this follows Franny, and she's having a terrible day. It sounds like it's going to be an adorable meet-cute between her and the main character. She's been fired from her job. She had her dress ripped in the subway, and then some stranger came to her rescue with his jacket and then rushed away from her. Unfortunately, this was all caught on social media, and he is actually a socialite. His name's Hayes Montgomery III, I think. Something along those lines, and now everyone thinks they're a great sensation and wants to see them together. I think this might be fake dating, or at least forced proximity, and that's another one of my favourite tropes, and they're very much so opposites, and hopefully this will be quite a great read of them getting together. It sounds really adorable and funny, so that's why I picked it up, and I'm hopeful that this will be a great read to add to my February lineup, because I did want to read a lot of romances over February. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and seeing what I'm going to read over the month of February. Let's hope that I can get through all of these 8 books here and that I don't end up DNFing this, or it'll be the first DNF of the year. I also have some arcs and other things, so if you follow me on Instagram you'll be able to see my entire lineup for February there. Thank you so much again for spending time with me today. I hope that you're all doing well. I'll see you in a new video sometime very soon, and take care. Bye everyone!